Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are here with another episode of Coach Krisler's Convos. And before I get to our guest for today, I just want to let those of you know that are new that this is just a place where we have conversations with different people about their experiences in their health journey using functional medicine and where they've been, what they've come through, and where they are now. So today's guest is Jennifer. I'm so excited to meet you and to talk to you today, Jennifer. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Krisler, for having me. I'm excited as well.
Yeah, so before we get into your health journey, tell everyone who you are, where you are from, and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Jenny. I am a wife, a mom of 2 kids. My daughter is going to be 14 next month. It's really hard to even believe that. We're entering the high school stages, which is just, as I know, these last 2 years of middle school have flown by. I can't imagine what the next 4 years are going to look like. So really trying to savor each moment of that. I live outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I moved here almost 5 years ago. Actually, no, it's been 5 years with my family. My husband had a job offer and we moved from Southern California. It was a pretty smooth transition, but I am happy to say that we're pretty acclimated here and we love it. We love Arizona.
That's awesome. Okay, so wife, mom, and you also attended the same a coaching academy that I did, FMCA.
Yeah.
Yay!
Woo.
So we are both graduates of that program. It was amazing. So that's how we got connected, is through the alumni program with FMCA. So yay, certified health coaches.
Yay.
And so tell me, how old is your other child? Do you have, is it,
He's 11.
A girl, you have a boy that's 11.
11-year-old. Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of craziness going on with those ages. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally get that.
Yes, but it's fun. It's fun. I'm not looking forward to them going off to college, so I am soaking it all up.
I am right there with you. It's crazy how quickly the time goes by.
How old are your kids?
They are 11 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Boys, girls?
2 boys.
2 boys. Okay.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, very
Fun.
active. We are in a similar stage in terms of transition with my older one. He will be 12 going into middle school. So not looking forward to middle school, but you know what? It's coming. So
Coming.
I'm just gonna deal with it as the time goes. So but I want to get into your health journey and talk a little bit about the things that you have dealt with and your experiences. So first, let's start with why you decided to become a health coach.
Yeah. So when I moved here, I had a talk with my husband, and because in California, I was doing educational counseling. So I worked at the community college as an adjunct academic advisor and loved it. And when we moved here, it was really hard to transfer into kind of the same position at the local community colleges here. So my husband and I talked, and I decided to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, volunteer at the kids' school, do all the mom things. And I knew that I was going to have to look into something because I didn't, I wanted to transition back into work in the helping profession. So in that time that I was home, I had a lot of alone time because my kids were in school.
Right.
But we weren't paying for a housekeeper because it's like, I'm not working. I need to be cleaning my house. So I would plug into podcasts to make that chore more appealing. And that's when I started learning all about health and wellness and functional medicine. And I was starting to have, well, I had always had my own health struggles with weight challenges, fatigue, anxiety, depression. I've always dealt with that as long as I can remember. And so when I moved here, I wasn't under any stress of a job. We made friends pretty easily. My kids were acclimating really well, but I was finding myself having that afternoon crash. And I was dealing still with depression and just would be blue and sad. And I'm like, what is going on? And so in California, when I would bring that up to my doctor, he said, oh, you're a mom. It's normal to be tired all the time when you're a mom. And I'm like, okay, well, I believed him because he was my doctor and he was the expert. So I'm like, well, I guess I just have to be tired all the time because I'm a mom. And so when I was out here, I was reading all the books, and I read a book called Deep Nutrition by Dr. Kate Shanahan. Not sure if you've read that book. But she
I'll add it to my list.
Yes, it's very thick. It's very sciencey. But there was a piece of it where she talks about blood sugar and that if our fasting blood glucose is over 90, we are on the path to prediabetes. And so I went and bought one of those blood glucose monitors, and I tested myself, and it was way above 90. It was over 100.
Oh, wow.
And that scared me because I lost my dad from complications from type 2 diabetes. So I had always heard, it's in your genes. If your parent has type 2 diabetes, you're destined to get it, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I remember going to my endocrinologist and telling her that I'm feeling this way. I'm tired all the time. My blood sugar was high. I don't know if my thyroid, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism in my 20s. So I don't know if it's my thyroid, what's going on. So when she tested my A1C, which is the 3-month average of your blood sugar, it was 5.6, and 5.7 is pre-diabetic. So I was high, and I said, what can I do to lower it? And she said, you're fine. You don't need to worry about it right now. And I thought, okay, yeah, but I don't want it to keep creeping up. How do I stop it from creeping up? And she said, okay, well, just make sure that you eat right and exercise. It was very vague. And I was like,
right.
Okay, well, I think I'm eating right and I am exercising. So what's going on? So I just didn't like the answers that I got from her. And then I had been learning, I was, obsessed with Dr. Hyman's Doctor's Farmacy podcast. And so I found a functional medicine doctor. And when I went to her, she did all my labs, and she's like, yeah, it's too high. We need to get it down. And your thyroid's not right either. We need to adjust some things, and you need to change how you're eating. I'm like, okay, great. How do I do that? And she showed me how. And it was life-changing as far as, in as little as a month, how great I felt and how my numbers started to drop. And that's when I knew this is my next path. This is what I'm going to go to school for. I'm going to get certified, and I want to help other women who are struggling like I was, who are being gaslit by their doctors, telling them that your labs are normal, everything's okay, you don't need to worry about it. Oh, you're tired just because you're a mom. And tell them, no, you have all of how you're feeling is valid. There is something, your body is communicating to you that something isn't right.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up at FMCA. And that's my specialty is blood sugar balance with women over 40.
Yeah. Wow. So we have so many things in common with the education piece and working in a community college. I did that for a while with the whole working mom thing, and you're just tired and, accepting that. Okay, I did that for a while.
Yeah.
Transitioning out of education or into something different, that too. So check the boxes in terms of the things we have in common. And yet, having all those things in common, our stories still are not exactly the same, which I think is such a it just pinpoints how personalized functional medicine is, because we can both walk into the doctor's office with so many things that are similar. And yet those functional medicine practitioners are going to go, well, there's so many things that are different as well. And let's look at everything, not just your labs, not just your symptoms. They're going to look at that whole person. And, it sounds like when you went to your doctor, that's exactly what you got, was that whole person view and evaluation that really then started you on a path towards healing.
Right.
So let's back up a little bit and let's talk a little bit how, first of all, you were diagnosed with hypothyroidism in your 20s. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I was in college and I remember my parents were going through a divorce at the time. And I remember just really being fatigued all the time. I was puffy, like my face was really bloated and puffy. I was working out and not losing any weight. I wanted to sleep all the time. I was depressed, hair falling out, all the things. And I went to my doctor. And as soon as I told him my symptoms, he tested my thyroid. This is my conventional doctor, who I really loved. He tested my symptoms, or he tested my labs, and I came back positive for hypothyroidism. My probably just my TSH was off. And so then my dad at the time was like, if you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life, we need to get a second opinion. And so then I went to an endocrinologist. And that was the only time since before I moved here that I went to an endocrinologist to manage my thyroid, or to even just consider my thyroid. I had always gone to my family doctor, which now, looking back, I would have done it differently. I would have gone to an endocrinologist. And so this endocrinologist said, if you were a 40-year-old woman, you would not be able to get out of bed. That's how low your thyroid is right now. And so that's when I started taking medicine, and I noticed a difference. But in the years going on, I was always kind of like on the same dosage. It was always managed by my family doctor. And then I was pregnant, and our thyroids change and our thyroid needs change when we're pregnant. So it kind of got a little wonky, and I don't think it was ever really managed at the level it should have been, where it was more optimal. And I am still, my functional medicine doctor now, we are still trying to get it right. It's like, okay, let's try this and let's do this. And it's very investigative. And that's what I love about it. But their bar is set so high, like, nope, it should be better. Your numbers should be better.
So, it's interesting because with conventional medicine, it's almost like they settle for being okay. Like, this is okay. So you're fine. And you mentioned, normal labs, which is questionable in America, because normal is based on the average American. Well, the average American is sick, right? We have 6 out of 10 people having a chronic disease, 4 out of 10 having at least 2 chronic diseases. That's a problem. I don't want to be normal. I don't know about you, but don't tell me I'm normal. Like, I want to be optimal at this point, right?
Yes.
So I think there's so many things, in what you're saying, but I honestly am shocked that you were diagnosed, that even your doctor looked at your thyroid in your 20s, because typically what you hear is women of any age, but especially women in their 20s, they're not going to do any sort of testing outside of the, kind of the standard tests. And you mentioned TSH, right? Which is probably all he tested. So it must have been really bad for them to say, because usually they'll say, oh, well, your TSH is normal. They're not looking at your, free T3 or T4, your antibodies or anything like that, right? That's going to give a much better picture
Right.
of what's going on in your thyroid. So,
I think it was because my mom had it, and he was also my mom's doctor, and I
mm,
really did like him. Like
mhm,
he really genuinely cared about me and my well-being. So that's why I don't want to shame conventional doctors because
mhm,
their hands are tied. They're limited because of their training and what
mhm,
they're trained to look at. So, and their scope of optimization, their range. I just I think I learned recently that the thyroid range is getting even wider as far as normal
mm,
levels. Um, and I think they're doing that with blood sugar as well. Like we should be below 90. Well, now they're saying below 100. Well, we really
mm,
should be below 90. So the ranges are very different from conventional medicine and functional medicine.
mhm.
So my doctor, I feel like he was doing the best he could. I think it's getting harder. I mean, this was 20 years ago, 20 something years ago. I think
Yeah,
it's getting a lot harder now. My kid's pediatrician is saying how um, discouraged he is that they're making it very difficult for them to even own their own practices now. It's all governed by entities and insurance companies. And it's unfortunate because so many doctors go into this medical field wanting to help others feel better
yeah,
and to live healthy lives. But when they are governed by these other entities like big pharma and, all this FDA stuff, that their hands are tied.
mhm,
And so um, it wasn't until went to functional medicine that I realized, wow, there is another way.
mhm.
And this is really how I think most doctors want to practice medicine.
Right.
It's just very difficult depending on, where they're at. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, this doctor, he was great, but he was also the doctor that told me it was normal to be tired all the time. So, because
Right.
he didn't specialize in endocrinology, he
Mhm,
couldn't really dive deeper into my thyroid. So,
mhm,
um,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I think just the scope of practice that you mentioned and the conventional medicine standard of care is very limited, right?
Hmm.
It's very much diagnose and treat. And if there is nothing that falls under that diagnosis, right? You don't fall within those lab ranges, then there is no diagnosis. So then therefore they cannot treat you, right?
Hmm.
And so that also becomes problematic when you look at things like insurance. If you're working under an insurance model and you can't diagnose somebody with something, well, then you can't treat somebody with something. So
Hmm.
what what do you do?
Yeah.
And so in that, it is very difficult for doctors. You're absolutely right.
Hmm.
Something else you said that was interesting too is, you mentioned nutrition. They said, you need to eat better. Well, again, we know that conventional medicine doctors aren't trained in nutrition, right? They get
Hmm.
a very, very small piece of that. And so
Hmm.
when they say you need to eat better, typically they don't provide detailed instructions or resources and things like that. So, um, what did you start doing in terms of your nutrition? Or what did you start learning that you were like, oh, this is something that works well for me or doesn't work well? What were
Hmm.
some of those things?
So, this functional medicine doctor recommended the paleo reset. So it
Hmm.
was very similar to the IFM's elimination diet, but I
Hmm.
cut out all grains. And the reason that she prescribed that diet is because my blood sugar was high. And
Hmm.
eating grains will still increase my blood sugar. And so I was able to do it with the health coach. I did have a health coach through the clinic that helped me
Hmm.
um, provide some tips on like how to batch food prep and all of that. But I had already started my journey, my health journey. So I feel like it was easy to incorporate
Mm.
because it was very restrictive. It was no caffeine, no sugar, no grains, no alcohol, no gluten, no dairy. It was a lot that I had to cut out. and it was for 30 days.
Okay.
I had dropped a lot of weight and felt the best I had ever felt in my entire life. And that's when it clicked for me that food is medicine. It truly is.
Yeah.
On top of everything else, right? The sleep, the stress reduction, our relationships, the company we keep. But food was the change that I needed to see the
Yeah.
results.
Yeah. It is foundational.
Yes.
When you build on a strong foundation, you have a strong house. When you build on a foundation of sand, that house can come crumbling down at any minute.
Yes.
When you're eating all of the ultra processed food all the time, that foundation is built of sand.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. So what was it like to be coached by somebody, to have that resource?
Well, what was cool about it is she was a FMCA grad as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it just was nice to have that accountability partner. I really valued the resources that she shared with me. They do know what to expect, like clients coming to them and you're telling them to cut out all these things. They anticipate the overwhelm that the client is feeling. So she was able to kind of walk me through that and break it down into steps and have that prep week and wean off the caffeine a few days before, all the things that make the whole process of implementing it easier. So yeah, it was very valuable. And it was when I was in school. So I had just started FMCA around the time that I was doing the diet. Yeah. It's funny because when I went to go see my functional medicine doctor, I was already set on going back to school for health coaching, but I wasn't sure what school. And so when I met this health coach and she was telling me about FMCA, I'm like, yep, that's the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that cool how that works out?
Yes.
Yeah. Phenomenal. Yeah. So it was very much a collaborative effort between your doctor and your health coach to get you on track and to help you stay on track.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another really cool thing about functional medicine is that there are so many different resources and you can collaborate. I think in conventional medicine, we've siloed everything, right?
Yes.
And so when everything stays separate, nobody's talking to each other. Nobody's collaborating. Nobody's asking each other the questions. The information isn't flowing back and forth. But when you have that collaborative care, then everybody's working together on the same things.
It's great. Like I will message her and say, look, I just started another thyroid dose and I'm like, I don't feel 100%. I think my thyroid is off. I said, can I test again? And it had been 3 months. And she goes, sure, here's your lab order. Like it's client driven, patient driven with the support of the doctor and saying, yes, I hear you. Your concerns are valid. Let's go get you tested. And sure enough, my results came back. They were not on par. And so we made some changes to my medicine. So it's also taught me to be more in tune to my body and how I'm feeling. And when I'm not feeling right, it's okay. I need to contact her and say, look, what can I do? I don't feel like things are operating at top speed. And so I'm like a partner in my own health, which I value so much.
Yeah. And that brings such empowerment to the client and the patient when they feel like they've got input, they're being heard. People are actually valuing what they're saying and how they're feeling, what symptoms are happening, how things are changing. Yeah. That's difficult when you only have 15 minutes in front of your doctor and then they say see you in a year.
Yeah. So this is the first appointment's an hour and a half long with a functional medicine doctor, and then this subsequent appointments are usually 45 minutes, sometimes more I spend with her. And it's very investigative. So I want to share another story because I think this might resonate with many people, especially many Americans, is cholesterol, high cholesterol. So I have high cholesterol, but I have, lower LDL, higher good cholesterol, but my total cholesterol is high. And we're thinking it's my thyroid that's a little off. So she said, let's rule out that anything that's going on with your arteries. And she prescribed a calcium score. I'm like, what is that? And basically, it's a scan of your chest area to make sure that there's nothing clogging the arteries around your heart, which could happen with high cholesterol. And heart disease, I think, is the number one killer of women in America, I believe. And so we went and had that scan done, and my insurance wouldn't cover it because I wasn't at risk. But it was only $75 out of pocket, which to me seems it's affordable and worth it. And I got my calcium score back and it was at a 0, which means my high cholesterol is not affecting my heart, which is good.
Yes.
So it's another tool that she gave me to rule that out versus the standard protocol for everyone with high cholesterol, which is being put on a statin. And we know that statin can cause insulin resistance and all other host of problems.
Right.
So I would never know that had I not been working with this doctor who said, let's try this first. So for all of your listeners who are listening, if that's what's going on with you, consider asking your doctor for a calcium score and ruling that out first. Because yes, if there is something going on, they need to figure out like how to get the cholesterol down and all the things. But the statin is the go-to standard of care with conventional medicine doctors, and it's not the ideal approach to treatment.
Definitely not optimal. You're right. I think, there's a lot of people who may be dealing with high cholesterol and they don't really know what that means. They don't know even what their numbers look like, right? They're not even given the feedback in terms of this is what your labs show. And maybe only a piece of the cholesterol has been tested, not their triglycerides. Usually it's HDL, LDL, and one's termed good, one is termed bad.
Yeah.
Well, they both exist for a reason.
Right.
So, just even understanding what that means and being able to have that conversation with your doctor is very important. I 100% agree with you that being able to ask that question, what does that mean? And getting a full answer is so important. And for you, that went beyond just getting the answer. It was, hey, let's give this a shot. Let's look at this from a different perspective. Let's get some additional information. There are other things that people can have tested as well, looking at, the size and density of your LDL.
Yes.
People don't know that. So I think, you sharing that is very important for people to know. It's not just a linear thing, right? There's not just one thing you can do that's the answer. There's so many things that can be done. So
yes,
very much appreciated that you share that.
Yeah. It's common. I hear it from my clients too. My cholesterol's high. I need to get it down. I'm really worried. And so just giving them that information to take to their doctor to just ask about it and get more investigative with it, with more tests.
I also want to address something else you mentioned in terms of the expense. There's a lot of people that are concerned that if they go to a functional medicine or integrative doctor that doesn't use the insurance model, that paying out of pocket is going to be expensive. And while yes, there is an expense, right? People have to eat, they have to pay their bills. We all do. That a lot of times, because they deal in a non-insurance model, they have a better understanding of the cost, right? And so, for example, I have 2 functional medicine doctors. I have a family medicine doctor. She sees everybody in my family. and then I have a functional medicine gynecologist. Both of them are very sensitive to cost. And they both will have said, well, we can run these panels. This is a full panel, and this is the cost. And these are the extra things if you would like to add on, but you don't have to.
Yes.
Or even, and that's one doctor who gets the blood drawn in her office. And then the other doctor, where I have to go to a lab to get the blood drawn, she'll say, well, go to this lab, because they are going to charge you less money for the same panel than the lab down the road. And so that's something else I think that's important that you pointed out in terms of the cost, is that yes, there's a cost, but oftentimes functional medicine doctors have an understanding that, you may not be able to afford certain things, or they know the ins and outs, maybe a little bit better.
Yeah. And a lot of the labs that they do run will be covered by insurance because they're standard labs as well. Like my thyroid labs are covered by insurance. And I want to say, and I don't know if that's true for you as well, but the most cost comes up front because they are really getting down to like the root of what's going on. And they want to test this, they want to test this and this and this and this. But yes, it's all with your permission. And my doctor is the same way too, as the scan, the calcium score scan, where she sent me, where she wrote the lab work. I think it was $500 for the scan. And she said, but I heard that this imaging place does it cheaper. And so I called that imaging place and it was a lot cheaper, $75. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
So they get a lot of the feedback from their patients too. This is too much, and this is the cheaper way to go about doing it. But if people are not able to spend the money up front for functional medicine, it's going back to the foundations, right? Is all of the free information that's out there for them, all of the podcasts from the doctors that are really giving you so much free information on how to start feeling your best, which is whole foods, limiting the ultra processed foods, reducing stress, moving your body, prioritizing sleep, getting out and looking at the sunshine and being out in the sun. Just starting there, people will start to feel better.
All of those things will make a difference. Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things you mentioned about your college years and when you were diagnosed was your parents' situation and, what you were experiencing from that. So how do you think that played into what you were dealing with and what was going on at the time?
Yeah, it's it played a big part in my health for sure. My mental health, my thyroid problems probably could have stemmed from that too. They say trauma, any kind of trauma. With my mom and dad, they were married 26 years and they had a lot of friends who had divorced. So I had friends that said, wow, your parents are still together. That's so great. Like we were considered the all-American family. And my parents didn't argue in front of us. Like we just didn't know anything was wrong. And then all of a sudden things happened and it was a shock to my brother and I. And it rocked our world in the sense that it was very traumatic. I kept busy with school. I am a human services major, so I was learning about family dynamics. I really do feel that school kind of saved me in that time because I was able to process it. I understood, where my parents were coming from. I was able to kind of be more empathetic with what was happening. And I also was able to get free therapy at school because of my major. Yeah. So I think that really helped. And that's what they talk about in functional medicine, that trauma that we experience in our life will come out in some way if we don't deal with it. If we suppress it and push it down and just try to forget about it, our body is smart and it knows like when we're not dealing with things. And that's when, we lead to alcohol abuse or drug abuse or unstable relationships. Like if we are not dealing with the whole picture, and that includes our relationships and dealing with trauma, it's going to show up in our health.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is such a good reminder that our physical and mental health are our health, right? We've separated them so much in the past, but they are one and the same. They're interconnected. And so when you talk about that, I think that's just a great reminder that those two things really need to be addressed, because one affects the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, with trauma, I think there maybe is a misconception that it's going to be something that's very big, so to speak, like a major car accident or, seeing somebody get shot in front of you or, something that is just big.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a counselor recently, and she said, there's this, when she was going through training, and even up until recently, people talk about trauma as capital T trauma and little t trauma. And she said, no, it's all T, like it's all trauma.
Yeah.
And so, I think when people say trauma, they think of something very big, but our body doesn't necessarily know the difference. And so, as you said, when we experience it, that could be the trigger,
right?
That, all of this time, these little things, these little mediators over time,
have
been a part of our body, have been a part of our experience, have been a part of our mindset. And then we experience this thing, and divorce, while it is common in our society, more so today than ever, it still is a trauma.
Right.
And so people don't necessarily make that connection as the trigger that now is they have insomnia all of a sudden and they don't know why, or they're getting headaches all of a sudden and they don't know why, or, whatever it is, they have brain fog and they don't know why. So,
it's, I can't really speak on the science of it, but there's just been so many like health gurus that have shared that some of our autoimmune conditions can stem from past traumas, unresolved trauma. And you're right, it's how we perceive it. So some people can go through divorce and be like, oh yeah, well, it's fine, but my perception of it was, no, my parents were going to be together forever. Like it just wasn't supposed to happen. And it was really hard because I was in my 20s. I was 21 officially, like when they divorced. So no matter how old you are, I was blessed to have them together throughout my whole youth. But it still felt like my world was turned upside down. We still had to figure out holidays. And I was like, well, do I spend it with my mom or my dad? And then my dad's alone and all those things. And it was really hard. And then shortly after that, my mom got breast cancer, which I do believe stemmed from her not living her life of purpose. It's what I truly believe, that she developed the cancer because she was living her life for her kids, for her husband, but not for her. And she got sick and she passed away at 52, which is very young.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that. And that's an additional stressor and trauma.
Yes, it was a lot. That was the divorce was just the beginning of all the things that my brother and I went through. Yeah.
Wow.
But it made me who I am today. What I experienced with my dad and watching him succumb to type 2 diabetes, where he was just given medication, metformin to lower his blood sugar. He was told, your blood sugar looks great, everything's fine, eat right and exercise. We know how well that goes.
Right.
And 10 years of doing that,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it wore on his organs and he had a heart attack. So it's learning that and seeing that and being more aware of like learning lessons from my parents' lessons, right? Like living a life of meaning and purpose, not living in anger, caring for your body like the temple it is. And if something doesn't feel right, really finding the answers and a guru that's going to tell you, yes, this is, you're right. This is not right. This is what you need to be doing. So I've learned so many lessons from my parents and it made me who I am today. And that's my why is I want to live a long life for my kids and I'm going to take care of myself and do the best that I can and hopefully help other women do the same.
Yeah. That's beautiful. There are so many times when we experience the dips in life, the valleys, and at that point, at any point along our journey, really, we have a choice. And it doesn't mean you stuff the sadness, right? It doesn't mean you don't feel the frustration or you don't get angry.
Yeah.
But you process it through it. You learn how to do that and to express your feelings the way that you need to and what works for you.
Right.
And also making the choice of moving forward or finding that meaning in your life, living life on purpose and choosing to climb back up the mountain to get to the top again. It makes a world of difference in the short term and in the long term as well. Yeah. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for sharing all that you did. I so appreciate your candor and your honesty and your vulnerability and sharing about your life and your personal health journey. And I know that whoever is watching is going to be getting all kinds of really good nuggets and lots of inspiration from you. So I appreciate you joining me today.
Thank you so much, Krisler, for having me here. It's been fun talking to another functional medicine health coach.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I feel like when I get in these conversations with, like-minded people, I feel like we could talk for hours. So
yeah.
So if there is anybody out there who would like to know more about you or has questions for you, where can they go?
Yeah, so my website is simplifiedlifestylecoaching.com, and I'm pretty active on Instagram, and I'm at Jenny AZ, so JENNYAZ_coach.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, and I will make sure to put that in the description of the episode as well. So if anybody has questions for you or they want to follow you on social media, they know where to go. And so for all of you who are watching, I appreciate you and I hope that you learned a little something today. Make sure you like this episode and give us your comments. Tell us your takeaways from this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of the combos because they're so phenomenal. And so until next time, I will see ya. Bye.
Bye.